So those who don't know, they recently released the one button assistant in WoW, and basically it's a one button that you can just press and it'll just do your damage rotation. So I could go test it over here on Havoc. Okay, so it's bugged out, but basically, yeah, this is the way that it works. Is that you mash this button and it'll just use abilities for you. It doesn't use your cooldowns though, so like you kind of need to time your cooldowns with it. But yeah, as long as you you can basically, for most classes, just use your cooldowns on cooldown and you'll probably be fine. Anyway, you get the idea. You can just press one button, it'll do your damage rotation. And it turns out for some of these specs, it's actually pretty good. So that's kind of what this video is about.
Probably going to do more damage spamming the one button. So yes, get ready. This is all a little bit weird, and this thing's very existence is going to sow chaos like we have never seen before. I've got big news for
I do believe this. It's crazy this has only been out like a week or two, but like it feels like they have to change it. So for example, I'm using the one button rotation in our mythic Muggsy prog. We are doing the hardest boss this tier, actually. Like realistically, Muggsy was the hardest boss in the raid. And I'm using the one button rotation on it. And not only that, I'm using the one button rotation on it, and I'm like middle of the pack DPS on it. So we can go to Warcraft logs here. I'm gonna pull up our logs from the raid. This is all of our wipes. We're just gonna average our damage out, so it's not gonna be like perfect. But I'm playing Og Evoker. I'm beating half of the DPS in our raid, and I'm just pressing one button, and I'm raid leading at the same time. So it's like it's kind of crazy that it's like literally it's just good for some classes.
So Wowhead's class writers did a report on how much of a nerf using the one button assistant actually is to your damage. And it looks awful on paper. So awful that it probably doesn't look worth it. It's just the
so many people were saying before this came out, they're like, nobody's going to use this. Like, why would anybody use this, you know? But like the reality, I think, is that in WoW, you are focused on so many different things at once that it's like the one button is literally, it's based off, like these stats are based off of like the highest damage or like sims and stuff like that, I imagine. So it's like when you compare that to like, okay, I'm not playing my class optimally and I lose 16% damage. What was I doing within 16% damage anyway on the boss? If you weren't within that threshold, it's like it's just better to use it, you know?
I don't want that. And the list of downsides is 3 times as big as the list of upsides. So at a glance, you might think it's not worth using. But if we look deeper, there is a truth that may be shocking to a few. And that truth is that the one button assistant is actually out DPSing heroic raiders en masse. So
this is the other thing too. I've been using it. So I tested this first in heroic raids, and it's kind of funny because like some of my parses are just better now. I'm not the best parser in the world, so like that's one thing. But like this Og parse, I parsed a 92 as Og in the raid. I did 2.6 million damage in a heroic raid as Og, just pressing one button on Cauldron of Carnage. This is my best galley parse. Again, 2.6 million damage as Og, just pressing this one button. Now, keep in mind, like this is not a very good item level parse. So like if we look at this and you compare it to like my actual item level and what I could do, it's like I'm playing bad kind of. Like I've got a 59 on blue parsing. But the reality is that anyone can get gear, dude, but not everyone's great at the game. So like if anyone can get gear, just get gear and then press the one button and you're gonna fucking parse. Like this is the reality of it. Wow. You're just gonna do better than you would.
Extensive testing, and all of these numbers are compared to DPS sims. Sims being the important thing there. Windwalker, for example, is at 26% nerf. That sounds bad, but that's 26% nerf compared to theoretical perfect play. That's because a sim makes no mistakes. It doesn't have...
Something worth mentioning is that, so this is a 26% decrease that he's saying. Part of the reason that it's like a decrease is not because it's like bad, but because there's literally like a GCD penalty. So like for some classes that are maybe like pressing like multiple like stuff a second, I feel like they would probably lose more. I don't know how Windwalker functions at all, but like if you're playing a class that like is like big button mashing like heavy and stuff like that, I imagine it probably loses more because it adds a 0.2 second GC.
Have to handle mechanics. It is unrealistic.
That's how they're trying to balance it, but like
if we take that
it's not enough.
And then just take a look at some real world data, we can see how well, accidentally misleading the red color of that red table may be.
So like looking at this chart, what would it be, right? We have the Mistweaver, or not Mistweaver, Windwalker. Where is it at? So Windwalker Monk. Windwalker. Am I just missing it? Am I just blind? There it is. So Windwalker, if this is like what it's comparing it to, like The Sims, and you're 26% worse, you would be like right here. But like that's still pretty fucking good. It's not like that's not terrible, dude.
So here's our methodology. Wowhead's estimates are single target, so let's just take a look at a single target boss. Thankfully, we've actually got one under mine. It's Sprocketmonger Lockenstock. Okay, we'll take a look at heroic, and let's lock the item level to a small range around actual heroic gear. That basically means we'll get good comparisons from decent players. Now, our first value here is the maximum log DPS for that spec in this item level range, which shouldn't be too far from the Sims that Wowhead used. The second number then is just the first number, but adjusted down using Wowhead's estimated one-button nerf percentage. So in theory, right, this is what using the one-button assistant can actually result in. And our other values are the actual upper quartile and median damage values. Basically, what being in the top 25% and the top 50% looks like. Another way of saying that...
There's a lot of stats. You kind of lose me a little bit on this.
Percentile and in the 50th percentile. So we got together this data set, and then we decided to compare all of these to see what we would find out. It is sort of rough maths, but I'm confident that it is in the right ballpark. And whenever Matt started putting
his outfit, good outfit,
this together for this video, he could never really have been ready for what
little coat, little jacket,
because it kind of did shock us all. Out of 27 DPS specs, 20 will be in the top 25% of DPS if they use the one-button assistant.
So basically, yeah, if these specs, Frost Decay, Unholy Decay, Havoc Demon Hunter, Balance Druid, Aug Evoker, Dev Evoker, Beast Mastery Hunter, Marksman Hunter, Arcane Mage, Frost Mage, Rep Paladin, Shadow Priest, Assassination Rogue, Outlaw Rogue, Ellie Shaman, Enhancement Shaman, Affliction Warlock, Demonology Warlock, and Fury Warrior. All of those specs, if they use the one-button rotation, they will be one of the top 25% of the players in that spec. That's pretty freaking crazy. Now, there's something, I guess, so he just mentioned that he's talking about, like, players who are in, like, heroic level gear, or, like, item levels to keep it, like, more comprised. I do wonder if, like, if you're taking that as, like, the sample size, I wonder if, like, you're getting worse players generally on average, but maybe that's comparing it to, like, the maximum, so maybe I'm stupid in thinking that. I don't know, dude. It's still fucking crazy, though. Like, I was showing you my AUG parses. I'm parsing well as AUG, and I'm just pressing with one button. It's just crazy.
1 to 5% better, so
like, unironically, here's the weird thing too. I've been using it a lot. In a weird way, it's kind of fun. Like we were talking about it earlier about how, like, somebody could potentially, not even potentially, one of our friends was doing this. They have a Steam Deck and they're playing WoW on their Steam Deck, and because there's not as many buttons, they are literally pressing one button. They're just using the one button rotation, and they're able to do that now because it exists, and it's good. So, like, you can do content in WoW using, like, a controller or a console, and, like, it's actually viable. I know in the past people did it on, like, Classic. I know that, like, Andy Fuchsia was, like, playing with a controller or whatever. I'm pretty sure, right? But, like,
higher DPS than what's considered a really good player based on real-world logs from bosses. On average, players who do 7% more than players who get 75 in heroic logs. And if you don't know what that means, I can basically guarantee you one thing. It means a lot of you, maybe even me, a lot of us, will do more damage with one button than we're actually able to do right now, which does seem kind of wild.
Now, to be fair, I think that if you're, like, a really good player, you can do more damage than the one button. Like I think if I went into these raids and I was, like, actually locked in, like, I'm just, like, focusing specifically on doing a lot of freaking damage, I definitely can, like, out damage what it's doing for me right now. But it's the idea that I can do this damage without thinking about literally anything. Like, I literally just press the button and I walk around and I use my cooldowns on cooldown. That's the crazy thing.
It's actually an even scarier story. Now, by median, we mean the 50th percentile.
And like he's saying, you're a below average player. It's just, like, crazy how much better it can make you.
Assistant could be doing 21% more damage than the median player. That's 21% more damage than most players in the game. Per these numbers, if we were to ignore one outlier, which is the abysmal sub-rogue, the lowest improvement seen is still 10%. The highest...
You know what's crazy? Is there a benefit of this, like, for like learning, or is it, like, do you learn anything when you use the one button rotation? Because I'm thinking I've been using it on AUG. I mean, we've done over 100, like, Muggsy pulls now. I probably used it for around like 60 of them or whatever. And it's like, I don't know if I'm any better at playing AUG than I was before. Like, I don't know. I was using it on the PTR too. And it's just like, it's just funny that I'm like playing the class. Like, I do kind of worry about like over time if it kind of like dilutes the game. Like, you have all these cool classes that are designed with all these like complex things that they can do, well, depending on the class, right? And it's just like I'm just completely ignoring all of that and pressing one button. I just don't care. You know what? The other thing I considered too, I'm kind of like pausing a lot, but like the other thing I considered is sure the one button rotation exists, and like I think the way of thinking that most people have is you either use it or you don't. But what if you used it at just like high stress points in the fight? So for example, during One Arm Bandit, during our kill, there's points in the fight where there's just a lot of freaking tornadoes, right? So we're gonna go. So there's points in the fight where there's just like a shit ton of freaking tornadoes going out, and it's very stressful. So like right now, you're gonna see, look at all these tornadoes, and like if you're stressed out about getting hit by these things, you're gonna be running around. You're gonna be not doing as much damage. And the reality is that like as an evoker, what I could do with the one button rotation now is I could press hover, and then I could just mash the one button rotation as I dodge tornadoes the whole time. Like you could literally get away with that, and because like you would basically be doing nothing effectively. You would gain damage. Actually, something really funny about this pull, this is part of the reason that I actually kind of wanted to start using it, is during this phase 2, I'm bad at the game, and I do less damage than our freaking Mistweaver monk. I did less damage than Mikey during this pull, and the reason is right here, is right when this happens. I'm not focused on my rotation at all. I'm just focused on the fight. These tornadoes are coming out. I don't realize I get knocked back, and my flame breath doesn't go off. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to double engulf the boss with like no dots on him. I just did it with my living flame or whatever on him. And then I do my flame breath, but it's like, okay, engulf's like all of my damage. So all of that's out the window right here. And then I get targeted by a mechanic here in a second. And I'm going to have to run out. And I'm going to be like on the other side of the fight. So it's like, okay, partly I'm bad, partly I'm like not focused. But like I literally like nuked my entire rotation because I couldn't focus in this moment. I just couldn't think. And we end up killing the boss, and it's sick. And it's like, okay, so cool. What I was doing is like fine, but like I did like literally 0 damage. I was useless in this phase aside from like calls. And like imagine if I just had the one button rotation right here. I was just pressing that button, and then like I'm literally instantly my damage goes up, and it doesn't change the calling at all. So it's kind of crazy, like the impact that this can have.
In
Like,
theory, it does 37%.
like unironically, I'm not the expert or anything, but like if you're a raid leader and you're like even worried a little bit about like not being able to call well on a fight, or if you like want to instantly increase your guild's like ability to kill shit, I feel like using this on a class that it's good for it's such a no-brainer right now.
Than the lower half of players. Raising the bar higher, it still does 25% more damage than the 75th percentile. That's an absolutely mad amount of damage for standing still and mashing one button. Some other DPS could be playing their absolute heart out and come nowhere near close to a number like that. Now, even in the weakest cases, like Fire Mage and Windwalker, you're still going to do more damage than the average player, it seems, all just with one button, which of course frees you up to focus on doing everything else right. So basically there you have it. Using Wowhead's hard work and some of our own maths, that is at least our theory heading into this patch. It does indeed seem the one-button assistant is better than you. And if you disagree or just don't like hearing it, good news, because there's actually a lot more to this story than just the numbers.
Really? I wonder if he's going to touch on some of the things I said.
The maths. Some numbers don't have to mean anything. I mean, a big disclaimer is that Wowhead's estimations don't count for gameplay mistakes. In their testing, they used cooldowns on cooldown, often knowing exactly what is best. They weren't, however, real-world combat scenarios that have got maybe mechanics to handle or some forced downtime.
This is something that's kind of annoying about it, I will say, after using it for quite a bit, is that sometimes it'll use abilities like right before you should actually use. So for example, when I like Ebb and Might is something that I want to use on my evoker to like buff people. And then like your flame breath you want to use after Ebb and Might, I'm pretty sure, because it extends the duration. I'm pretty, like I said, I don't really know how to play AUG that well, but like I'm pretty sure that's my understanding of it. But sometimes if your flame breath is up before your Ebb and Might, like 2 seconds even, it'll use the flame breath. And like instinctually, I'm not a pro at AUG. I don't know a lot about it, but I'm pretty sure you're supposed to wait to use that until after the Ebb and Might comes up. But I don't think that it's thinking ahead like that. I think that it literally just like thinks in the moment, what is the most value that I could get out of my current cast? What do I have? What can I use? And then it rips them like that. So I think that there must be some numbers that it crunches like
They
in that
definitely
moment. But
weren't lying dead after a failed mechanic. So getting the maximum results out of one button assistant would still need you to actually play the game properly, do the mechanics properly, which of course is much easier said than done.
the annoying part about this is that you need to have other things to like that on your bar to get around that. So if I want to make sure that the one button doesn't accidentally use my flame breath before Ebonite, now what I need to do is I need to have other things to cast to make sure that I'm not pressing that one button when my flame breath is available and my Ebonite's coming up. Which kind of defeats the purpose of using it in some regards for the aspect that I was mentioning. How like I want to not have to think about it what I'm doing at all when I'm raid leading. And instead, now I have to think about it a little bit, which is kind of annoying. You kind of wish that you could just remove that entirely, but but you can. You're still going to do decent damage, right?
Warlock, where both Demonology and Affliction players using this have still got to time their big cooldowns properly or risk losing tons and tons and tons of damage. It's also substantially less reliable in multi-target, and in Mythic Plus your class skills will probably matter way more than in Raid. Basically, Raid.
And that's probably part of the reason too. Like I'm hyping this up a lot, but part of the reason I can like actually parse decent when I'm using it, like I said, is because I'm heavily overgeared. But the other thing too is that I know the fights. Like I know where I'm gonna stand, and I know like how to do the mechanics and like where the boss is gonna go generally. So like knowing that sort of thing is kind of a lot of playing the game at like a higher level. Is like knowing how to move your character around so that you can actually maximize your.
Raid's quite predictable. In M+, you could have a few targets, you could have loads of targets. Mobs can live forever, or they could die in no time. Target priorities can be complex. They can involve switching depending on what happens, and all of those
This guy's playing Void Weaver Disc Priest.
Factors make the one button assist.
It's a 7 key. It's a 7 key. That's why.
Weaker. All that button is trying to do is a simple priority list based on target count, when of course a real Mythic Plus player is going to be constantly recalculating based on like a dozen different factors. The skill ceiling really is insanely high there. Now,
I haven't used it much in Mythic Plus. I will say that. I used it a little bit on my AUG and a little bit on Ellie. I think in Mythic Plus, what I noticed on Ellie is that my peaks were definitely a lot lower. My overall damage wasn't bad still, but like as Ellie, you can peak at like 20 million DPS, and it felt like you would never achieve that. Now, I might be wrong. Maybe depending on the class, you can definitely do that. But I felt like on my Ellie, I wasn't hitting that. Which was like, yeah, I mean, like you would hit like 7-8 million, and like that felt good still. And I imagine for like players who aren't as experienced, like that feels fine. And you would still average like 3 million DPS. It was actually kind of crazy.
Way too complicated to boil down into just one like percentage number. We just don't have the maths sort of simple enough to be useful there. But this is, right? It is easier than playing properly and learning all of the intricacies of your spec and learning all of the intricacies of the content that you're doing.
This is kind of funny too. So I mentioned I made a video recently talking about how like I got into mythic rating and how I think that like other people could do it as well. And I think that like literally the one button like rotation, like maybe not even mythic, but just like getting like ahead of the curve. Like if people want to do that easier, like this is a way that they can literally just help them. Like I wouldn't even, you don't even have to tell people, just like join a guild and use it. I bet most people won't even know. Like they won't even know that you're using one button unless you're like being really abysmal or you're like really bad. But like
if I wanted to embark,
like honestly, that's a challenge to people. Go join a guild and just use the one button and see if anyone notices.
For this, there'd be a very easy tagline: democratization of damage. And that certainly would rile people up because this is
like again, dude. We're going look at my mythic Muggsy prog, dude. Do you think anyone would have noted if I didn't tell them? Like maybe, probably not. Like good players would be able to tell, I'm sure. Overall for all white. You think anyone would have known? I'm above like half the raid. Like I'm not clouding out our players. Our players are awesome, but it's funny that it's like that good, dude. Like
is solid levels of damage in everyone's hands with way less learning curve. It'll basically let them play the game the way that they want with less stress and causing fewer problems for you, even if you're not using this, because now your teammates are more powerful. So what it essentially is proliferation of power. I guess the best case is that everyone is happy, more people are doing better, so toxicity falls to a new low and we all get to be happy and achieve our goals. That's what I'd say if I was running the campaign for this. If I was running the campaign against this feature, well, there's another tagline. that it's basically everyone's worst fears about communism. Everyone gets damage without having to earn it. All meaning will collapse. Everyone will fall into pure brain rot, and they will look less like hardcore gamers pushing the limits and more like those people mindlessly hammering buttons at casinos for hours on end.
Yeah, like it just can't be good for the game like long term, right? Like there's no way that it can be this strong and be healthy for the game. I just don't see a world. But that being said, like I do wonder if it is just like a fad. You know, like I don't know. Everyone, it's a new thing and it's hilarious. Like everyone's talking about it. At least I think it's hilarious. It's funny that it exists. Like I said, there are real world or like real implications to it. But like are people just gonna forget about it? Are they gonna get bored in like a week and just like stop using it? And then it'll just be kind of like just a thing that exists. Or it's like this is something that like everyone is going to be talking about for a very long time. Like I don't until it gets fixed anyway. It's possible. You know what would be crazy? There's no way, right? But like if like Race to World first people ended up using it for some reason. So I think people were asking if they're gonna use it for like splits or something. And I think that specifically what Max said or something. I don't quote me on this, but I think he said that like there might be a world where they make like their helpers use it, but like their raiders would obviously never use it because they're better than it. But like it is funny that it's like, oh yeah, like we need to pug some people for this, and we'll only pug people if they will use it. That's not what he said, but like that would be a funny universe, I guess. Not funny for the players who like maybe want to play the game more casually though. I was doing a dungeon recently actually. I queued into a rookery with one of my buddies, and we were doing like a 7 key. And we had this Havoc demon hunter in there, and my friend was also playing Havoc, and like the other Havoc was way higher item level than my friend, but he was doing like significantly less damage, and it was like definitely a situation where it's like, and like I'm not gonna be a jerk. I'm not gonna tell him to use it, but like he would do more damage if he used it. Like it's just like damn.
Thankfully, I'm not running a campaign.
We actually had a lever at the time too, so there was like even more incentive to do it. We were doing a 4-man dungeon for a little bit.
We'll basically see once the first 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks of logs come out for this patch, and Blizzard's inevitably, balance tweak stuff. I think the truth is going to be somewhere in the middle of those two ridiculous maximums that I just gave out. This will probably help loads of people.
I'm sorry about the Discord DMs, guys.
As well, but that's actually not the only concern, especially now that we've got some numbers to go by. One thing I think we can all get behind is that this is going to be chaotic, and I think Blizzard are not ready for the chaos this will bring. Blizzard talks about tuning knobs for classes, and this is going to be a massive one that they cannot tweak that easily. So, out of curiosity, we ran some more comparisons, and basically this is going to screw up class balance pretty majorly. I'll use an example, right? Marksmanship Hunter had the highest maximum in the logs that we looked at. Retribution was second. It was around 2% lower. But Retribution's Assistant is fairly bad, losing about 25% of damage. That means that Red is only strong for people who play it manually. That's just one example, so to find a hint of truth, we compared a few different percentages. There's the first. Percentage lower than max. This is how far away from Marksmanship Hunter the spec's max is when it's played manually. Then there's the Assistant lower than max, which is how far away it is from the manual Hunter when being played with the Assistant.
Okay.
Then there's this third number, which is how far away when both players use one button. That's the interesting one, because with our Red example, it's 2% weaker manually. If the Red player plays with one button, then they'll be 27% weaker. But if both players play with the Assistant, Red will only be 14% weaker. You see the difference there? That's going to be weird for Blizzard. These are 3 entirely different balance concerns, all depending on the one-button Assistant being used. So how are Blizzard going to manage that? I genuinely don't know. And it gets weirder as well. Affliction Warlock is around 26% weaker than Marksmanship when both are
I feel like if you nerf it to the ground, it becomes like literally like not. So like they said that they want this to be for accessibility, right? But like if you nerf it to the ground and it's no longer viable, like those same players would not be able to push like high stuff. They just won't. Like if people are saying like add like a 25% like aura nerf to it or something. And it's just like, okay, if you have like a 20% damage nerf for 25% while using this, and then you can't like actually do any damage, you're doing like tank damage and everything, it's like nobody's gonna bring you to anything, right? So it's like a weird situation where it's like, okay, if this exists, is it allowed to be okay? Because if it's not allowed to be okay, those people still can't do stuff, right? They can do world questing, they can do delves and stuff, and maybe that's what they should do. But it does kind of suck for those people that it's like, I don't know, if they do want to actually do stuff. But
manually played. But if both use one button, the gap gets narrower. It's only 23%, and that's because Aflock's assistant is better. Basically, the numbers are all over the place, and one-button assistant makes it even more complex. Now, for you and the game, this basically means one thing. Deciding what to play got more complicated, even if what you're looking for is something that is more simple to play. And I know that sounds wild, but that kind of is the upshot of this video. Imagine, for example, being a guide writer. Reporting on what's best to play is just going to get weird as hell here. I mean, you need tier lists, right? Tier lists are a thing, but now we're going to have tier lists for playing manually and tier lists for playing with the one-button assistant.
yeah, unless this becomes irrelevant, at which point the tier list won't do that. Like, if it gets nerfed to the ground, like, why would you wouldn't make a tier list?
Players will be hyper vigilant over who's using the one button assistant. I wouldn't be surprised if we perhaps get a few new add-ons out of this. Maybe ones that measure
Dude, this says real finger users only. I'd be the opposite. I'd set one button users only. Let's freaking time this key, dude.
time between players.
People are going to be getting more kicks. They're going to be doing more stops. They're going to be using their defensives. It's crazy how much, like, literally when you're pressing one button, you just look at the pack. And you're like, oh, that guy's casted. I should kick that. You know, like, you just notice now.
Sort of, you know, snitches out. Oh, this person's got the one button assistant GCDs. They're using the cheat. Maybe a weak aura that reports people for playing with one button. We'll have other bizarre things in Buildcraft as well. We'll now have people Googling what's the best one button talent build for whatever their spec is. Not just what is the best.
I thought about that with Ellie, actually, when I was playing it. I was running, so you have Ellie Blast or Earthshock, right? You can pick one of the two. Ellie Blast is like, I think it's better single target technically, but Earthshock is instant cast and it costs less Maelstrom. So like what you can do is like, okay, like if I'm going to be moving, I kind of like the idea that I have like this instant cast thing. So like I don't have to stand still to cast it when I don't even know if I'm going to be casting at the time, right? Because sometimes you need to move, right? And you don't want to cancel your cast. There's also other things like Echoes of the Elements or whatever, or Echoes of Great Sundering, I think it's called. And it's like, okay, do I think that this thing's going to use Echoes really well, depending on the boss? It's like, probably not. Because sometimes you don't want to place Earthquake, even if it knows how to do this, which I don't know if it does. If the boss is going to move, I don't want to use Earthquake, because then he's going to move out of the Earthquake. It's not going to matter. So it's like little things like that. It's like, okay, well, I probably don't want to spec into Echoes then. I'm probably just going to go no Echoes, and I'm just going to go with Earthshock, and then that way my build will be easier, and it'll be better for one button, you know?
It just gets more and more goofy, right? So imagine someone's playing the one button flavor of the month, but they're actually playing manually, and they're getting attacked for underperforming. That's a goofy situation that could now happen. Maybe they might be told to play the easy way because they're just trolling if they're playing the best one-button spec but not using the one-button rotation.
I do wonder how long it takes people's egos to catch up to this, because like I think that based off of ego, like you saw the group that you just posted, the like actual players only or whatever, like real finger players only or whatever it said. Like those people exist, and like the idea of even using a one button, I say I'm doing one button on Mythic Muggsy, and people are like, he's just bad. And it's like, no, I'm doing it because I feel like it. I feel like it's actually pretty smart. I don't think it's a bad idea. It does decent damage. It lets me like think about things more. I'm calling the fight. It just kind of makes sense to me. But like for some people, they would just never do it. They couldn't be asked to do it. So like when you consider those people, it's like, okay, how good could it be before they would actually start using it, right? They're gonna judge players for doing it, but the reality is that if it's better, it's like, it's kind of crazy, dude. You know, like. You should definitely do that. But I'm wondering if those people would just like always be egoed, and how long it'll actually take for people to be like, wait, maybe we should be using it. Right?
Playing the real flavor of the month, you know, manual, but they're actually using the assistant, and the assistant for that spec or build happens to be awful, so
it's like a blooper.
Basically just get kicked. It's going to be weird. So hopefully, Blizzard have done the work preparing for whatever way this ends up going. If nothing else, I think the War Within's last season is going to be very interesting to watch.
That's crazy. One button's fun, dude. It's fun. Give it a shot if you haven't. Just like fuck around with it. See how much damage you can do. It's just, I don't know. I've been having a lot of fun with it. It probably should get nerfed, but I don't know. Do it while you can. It's interesting. There's nothing going on in the season anyway right now. Give it a shot.